Hey y'all! Settle in, because today I'm going to tell you an epic story about a woman named Sarah. Sarah grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Houston, Texas. Her mom, Linda, was a school principal, and she had this air of authority that extended way beyond the school gates. Her dad, Tom, was an accountant, a quiet man who was always buried in numbers. Linda had a clear-cut view of what a successful daughter should be like, and unfortunately for Sarah, she didn't quite fit the mold. Sarah's sister, Jessica, was the apple of Linda's eye. Jessica was into beauty pageants from a young age. She'd strut around the house in her glittery dresses, and Linda would be right there, cheering her on, helping her with makeup, and making sure she looked perfect. Jessica's trophies lined the mantelpiece, a constant reminder of her achievements in Linda's eyes. Sarah, on the other hand, was a tomboy. She loved playing football with the neighborhood boys, climbing trees, and building things with her hands. She was really good at woodworking, and she'd spend hours in the garage, creating little wooden trinkets. But Linda didn't see this as anything special. She'd often sigh and say, "Sarah, when are you going to act more like a lady?" When Sarah was 16, there was a big woodworking competition in the city. Sarah spent weeks crafting a beautiful wooden bookshelf, pouring her heart and soul into it. She was so excited to show it off and maybe finally get some recognition from her mom. But on the day of the competition, Linda was too busy helping Jessica prepare for a last-minute pageant rehearsal. Tom went with Sarah, but it still stung that her mom wasn't there. Sarah ended up winning first prize, but when she showed Linda the trophy, Linda just said, "That's nice, dear, but maybe you should focus on more feminine things." After high school, Sarah got into a local community college to study construction management. She was fascinated by how buildings went up from the ground up. She worked part-time at a construction site, learning the ropes from the older workers. Meanwhile, Jessica was studying fashion design at a prestigious art school in New York. Linda would brag about Jessica to all her friends, talking about how she was going to be the next big thing in the fashion world. Sarah graduated from community college with flying colors and got a job at a mid-sized construction firm. She started as a junior project manager, but she quickly proved herself. She was good at problem solving, dealing with difficult contractors, and making sure projects stayed on schedule and within budget. One of her first big projects was renovating an old downtown, building into a trendy co-working space. She worked long hours, sometimes sleeping on the site when there were critical deadlines. Over the next few years, Sarah climbed the corporate ladder. She became a senior project manager and was given more and more responsibility. She was in charge of multi-million-dollar construction projects, from building new schools to luxury apartment complexes. But her family back home still didn't really understand the magnitude of her work. Linda would just say, "Oh, Sarah's still working in construction? I hope she doesn't get too dirty." Then, Jessica got engaged to a wealthy businessman named Ethan. Linda was over the moon. She immediately started planning the wedding, which was going to be a huge, elaborate affair at a fancy country club. She took charge of every little detail, from the floral arrangements to the menu. When it came to the seating chart, Sarah was placed at a table in the far corner, near the service entrance. Linda said it was because she wasn't bringing a date, but Sarah knew it was just another way for her mom to marginalize her. The night before the wedding, there was a rehearsal dinner. Linda was the center of attention, introducing Jessica and Ethan to everyone like they were royalty. When it was Sarah's turn to be introduced, Linda said, "And this is Sarah, my other daughter. She's in construction, still single. Maybe one of you gentlemen can find her a nice boy." Everyone laughed politely, but Sarah felt a pang of humiliation. However, Ethan's uncle, Frank, a retired architect, pulled Sarah aside later. He said, "I've heard a bit about your work. Don't let your mom's words get to you. Construction is a noble profession, and I can tell you're passionate about it." His words gave Sarah a little boost of confidence. The day of the wedding was picture perfect. Jessica looked stunning in her designer gown, and the country club was transformed into a fairy tale wonderland. During the reception, after the initial toast, Linda grabbed the microphone. She talked about how proud she was of Jessica, how she'd always known she'd marry a great guy, and how they were going to have a beautiful life together. Then she turned to Sarah and said, "Now, Sarah, she's a hard worker, but I just wish she'd find a man and settle down. She's not getting any younger, you know?" The guests shifted uncomfortably, but some laughed nervously. Sarah had had enough. She'd been holding back her achievements for years, tired of her mom's dismissive attitude. She stood up, and the room fell silent. She said, "Mom, it's time you knew the truth. I'm not just some construction worker, I'm the vice president of my company. I have overseen some of the biggest construction projects in the city. My work has been recognized by industry leaders, and I've won numerous awards. I'm not just building buildings, I'm shaping the skyline of Houston." Just as she finished speaking, the doors of the reception hall burst open. In walked Sarah's boss, David, along with a group of her colleagues. David was a well-respected figure in the construction industry, known for his innovative projects. He walked up to Sarah and said, "Sarah, I'm sorry we're late. We just had to be here to celebrate this moment with you. You've just been named the president of our company. Your leadership and dedication have been instrumental in our growth, and we couldn't be more proud of you." The room was in an uproar. Linda's face turned pale as she realized the magnitude of what she'd just heard. People who had been laughing at Sarah moments ago were now congratulating her. Jessica came over to Sarah, looking a bit sheepish, and said, "I had no idea, Sarah. Why didn't you tell us?" Sarah replied, "I tried, Jess. But every time I did, Mom would brush it off. I was tired of not being heard." After that, things started to change at the wedding. People flocked to Sarah, asking her about her work and her new position. Linda was left sitting at the head table, looking a bit lost. She realized that she'd been so focused on Jessica's achievements that she'd completely overlooked Sarah's. Aunt Carol, Sarah's dad's sister, who had always been supportive of Sarah, came up to her and said, "I always knew you were something special, Sarah. I'm so glad you finally got the recognition you deserve." Sarah said, "Aunt Carol, you've always been there for me. And you know, it's never too late for you to follow your dreams too." After the wedding, Sarah went back to her work with a newfound confidence. Her relationship with her mom was still rocky, but she decided to give her some space. Jessica started making more of an effort to connect with Sarah, and they had some long, overdue heart-to-heart conversations. A few months later, Sarah was invited to speak at a national construction conference. She gave a powerful speech about her journey, from being the overlooked daughter to becoming the president of a major construction company. Her speech was covered by the media, and it inspired a lot of young women to pursue careers in construction. Linda saw the coverage and was filled with a mix of pride and regret. She finally reached out to Sarah and apologized for not being a better mom. Sarah was hesitant at first, but she decided to give her mom a chance. They started going to counseling together to repair their relationship. Aunt Carol, inspired by Sarah's story, decided to go back to school to study graphic design, something she always wanted to do but had put off. Sarah helped her with the application process and offered her support. Sarah also met a wonderful man named Jake at a construction industry event. Jake was an engineer, and they had a lot in common. They started dating, and their relationship grew stronger with each passing day. As time went on, Sarah's company continued to thrive. She took on even more ambitious projects, like building a sustainable eco-city on the outskirts of Houston. She was also actively involved in mentoring young women in the construction field, making sure they didn't face the same kind of dismissal she had. And through it all, Sarah knew that she had finally found her voice and her place in the world, not defined by her mom's expectations, but by her own hard work and determination.